John, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me for this Google Hangout. Um,
Well, thank you very much for inviting me, Timur. I really appreciate it. Love talking to you.
Me too. John, you're the chairman of 1 Million Acts of Innovation globally. All of the co-founders around the world love you. I don't know if a day or a week that goes by where we don't talk about you, kind of a distinction that you've trained us in, something that you've helped us in by that. And I'm sure that this would not be a global movement if it wasn't simply directly by you. So it's just such a privilege to have you here. I know that a lot of people hear about you all around the world, but unfortunately not all of us have had the pleasure of meeting you. So I think this is a great kind of introduction to who's John King that you guys keep talking about. I'd love for you to start a little bit, kind of share a little bit about your background, who you are, how you got to where you are now, what are some things that you're doing. And then I'd love to spend some time with you on some of the distinctions, specifically triads, the distinction that you introduced in one of the last books that you co-authored, which, by the way, a note to all of our viewers, Tribal Leadership became a New York bestseller. So with that, John, can you share a little bit about yourself and who you are?
Yeah, I can. Thank you very much. Let's see. There's a couple of things. Pretty much obvious. I'm old, and that means I've been around a while. And I'm a guy who I was a professional dancer at one point in my life many years ago when Jesus and Rumi were very tiny babies, Timur. And so back in those days, you know, we used to communicate by way of sticks and smoke signals. And now here we are in the day of the internet, and it's all good. I learned everything that I learned about business in show business, and I worked my way through, and I was in front of the camera, and then I got on the other side of the camera, and I started writing and producing and directing. And then after I was done with that, which I'd done it for about a long time, I started leading and teaching in programs that were designed to impact communities, and I fell in love with life all over again. So it was no longer about me, which is all that show business was ever about, and it was now about other people. And I began to see that there are certain things that we have in common as human beings if we just kind of get out of survival and lift our head up and take a look at the beauty of life and the beauty of the people that are around us. So in so doing that, I got to a place where I was teaching at a couple of universities. One of them was the University of Southern California in the Marshall School of Business and in the Price School of Public Policy, and the University of Arizona in the Eller College of Business. And what they were interested in was not me. And that was a kind of a shock for a guy who had been in show business, and it was like all about me. But what they were interested in is what I was thinking about. And that, again, was a shock because nobody's ever interested in what a dancer does or thinks about. Generally, because they're not thinking about much at all except how to stay healthy and how to do whatever it is that they're doing. So I had been looking at the relationship and the interrelationships between people. And I came upon a day about 12 years ago where a very close friend of mine's son tragically had committed suicide. And when I began to trace it all out and began to get my head around it, I noticed something that for me was like aha, duh, and wow, all rolled into one. I saw that how we operate with one another is inside of a myth called the basic unit is a unit of two, like you and me. And I saw how unstable that unit is. And when I began to look it out, I actually saw that the truth is that in every stable, effective relationship or partnership, there are always at least three elements, usually more, usually a lot more. So as I looked at that, I began to look at every single relationship of my life. So I could take the case of you. We could be in a relationship, Timur, where it's just you and me, and we're on a kind of a seesaw, and it kind of goes up and down and up and down. And there are days when it's great for Timur, and there's great days when it's great for John, but we're not really stable.
Mm-hmm.
Or we could be in a relationship where it's you and me and our commitment to this project called A Million Acts of Innovation. And
Mm-hmm.
that million acts of innovation becomes something that anchors our relationship and nurtures our relationship. Well, when I saw that just in a little way, I began to see that this is a universal principle. And the principle is that that stability is a function of at least three elements. More is better, much more is much better. And that when you get to less than three elements, whatever the relationship is, it goes unstable. Now, the first place that I tested it is I took a look at marriages because tragically in the United States we have about a 50% plus divorce rate. And I
Mm-hmm.
saw that there were an enormous number of divorces that occurred when people got into their early 40s. And they had children that had grown up, they had a great family, and then the children were off and away to school, and the husband and the wife were left with each other. The house, you know, they'd done the kitchen again as many times as they were going to do it. The guy, you know, he had mastered his job. He's 43 years old. He's mastered his job. He's bored to death. And the kid is gone, and the kid is what stabilized them in their relationship. So the house is no longer stabilizing them. The job is no longer stabilizing them. And if they're both working, the job is no longer stabilizing them anyway. And so they go into something that the psychologists have named midlife crisis. There's no such thing as midlife crisis. In fact, what's going on is they are drifting. They are unanchored, and they do not have something that is anchoring their relationship and stabilizing their relationship again. Mm-hmm. So if you're smart in your relationship, I saw, one of the things that you will do is as something is going to phase out, like your kid is 15, 16, 17 years old and going away to college, you will figure out something to do together that's going to restabilize your relationship. You're going to take up ballroom dancing, or you're going to take up painting, or you're going to go on cruises together. You take up a hobby that the two of you can build yourself into, and that will start the process of restabilizing your relationship. People who do this report a new lease on life. They report a new lease on their relationship. Wow. So seeing that, I saw this is a universal process. It's happening all over the world. And I started testing it by going to places like the Middle East and working with different cultures, and Central Eurasia, Southeast Asia, around the world, testing. I even got to basically the weirdest place that I went to was Toronto, and started working with Canadians. Gotcha. But what I found out is we speak the same language, but no, we actually don't. So what we did is we developed something, and interestingly enough, we took three of us, you and me and Ted Malucci, and Ted stabilizes and anchors our relationship. And then the three of us came together around this amazing idea that you actually coined and put into action called A Million Acts of Innovation, and started to put it out. Now, you have developed a mastery at triadding, okay? Because what you do is you take what we offer and you hook up a student, and then you'll hook up a professor, and you'll hook up a business, and you'll hook up a million acts of innovation and get them working together, and you'll create very, very stable relationships. So the Flourish program that we do, for example, is a good one where people come in and they have social media skills, and we're going to kind of enrich their social media skills, but at the same time we're going to teach them how to triad with potential employers, bring value to what it is that they're doing, and also bring the school that they gone to into some kind of worthwhile, beneficial relationship with the business as well. Schools want to deal with businesses. Businesses actually want to have that academic cachet and work with businesses, and schools, so that those two are natural partners, but they need something that anchors it. And what anchors it is the student. And by the way, if we bring in the professor, you know, somebody who has a little bit of leverage in this. So what we do is we take students, train them up, and then put them into intern positions. The idea being that if they provide value for the company will hire them. So on one hand, you could say, well, we're creating jobs for people, or we're training people to do job creation, stuff like that. That's not at all what we're doing. What we're doing is we're building relationships across the face of Canada with businesses and with schools and with young people that is, in fact, anchoring and is the insurance policy that is building the future in what we hope is an innovative way for the country of Canada. Canada is already one of the better places in the world to live. It actually is ranked up there with Norway, Sweden, Switzerland, with those Northern European companies that everybody knows on every kind of poll that these are the best places to live. Canada never ranks any lower than 5th or 6th. It actually ranks quite a bit higher than the United States. And it does it for good reason. You've got a Class A educational system. B, you've got very, very smart people, and you've got a huge influx of very bright people who are immigrating into Canada every year. I believe it's in the nature of about 250,000 people a year are coming in from where? From India, you know, from Pakistan, from various countries around, China, for example. And these people have an incredibly interesting, powerful, and profound work ethic. So when you deal with Indians, for example, when you deal with Chinese, for example, these people are already geniuses at triading. They already understand about family and support and the social thing and so on like that. Basically, all we have to do is kind of show them the model. And they look at us like, yeah, duh. The place where people don't do duh is in the United States, and you know, where people are going, no, I am an individual, I am the strong one, I will prevail by myself. That day is over. That age is over with. If you want to be efficient, you can do it on your own, and you can get so far. But if you want to be effective, if you want to be a leader, if you want to be a strategist, if you want to have mastery at the level of your culture, if you want to actually leverage yourself and the power of the dynamic of what you know and the dynamic of what other people know, the basic building block is building triads, building yourself into a relationship with another person who is skilled, and maybe 2 other people who are skilled, and you've all got each other's back, or building yourself into a relationship with another person plus some sort of what we call the noble cause idea. So noble cause idea, 1,000,000 acts of innovation. We'd like to see this go all over the world. And we started in Canada, and we started with this idea that Canada had been notated as, I think, 13th in the world out of 17 developed nations, 13th out of 17. This was insane. Given the power, given the intelligence, given the money, and oh, by the way, given 2008 and every other country in the world except for Australia and Canada crashed, now was the time for us to actually say, we're going to take Canada to top 5 in the world in the realm of innovation only. We had no idea what we were biting off, but we knew that it was something that was worth going for. And it's not an accident that the first country that signed up to go with us on this thing is Australia, and that they're going great guns in their 1,000,000 acts of innovation, Australia. So how are we doing it? We're doing it by one triad at a time and connecting that one triad to another, to another, to another. Because the realization is that how you actually build a network that is effective and is stable is you hook up triangles. If you take a piece of paper and you draw a triangle on the piece of paper, and then you just put a dot out there, and then you just generate 2 lines out to it, all of a sudden you got a couple of triangles. If you hook every dot in that triangle up to every other dot, you now have 4 triangles with just 1 dot added. So how it works in duality, in dyads, in just the 2 of us, is that I'm just putting one person on at a time. and it becomes difficult because I have to manage everything about them. But if I start hooking up the triangles to other triangles, if you take that piece of paper and you start drawing triangles on the piece of paper, you can see you can get an infinite number. That is, in fact, what a resilient, robust, stable network looks like. It doesn't look like hubs and spokes. You know, with all due respect to the guy that invented network systems theory, is a guy named A.L. Barabasi, and he's a smart man. He's a astrophysicist, but with all due respect, that was the answer back in the 90s. The answer in the 21st century is triads, and connecting triads to triads to triads, finding people who have a like interest and a similar skill set, and putting them into relationship with one another inside of another distinction called leading from your current position. What we're creating then is we're creating networks that are self-generating, self-managing, and self-perpetuating. So in fact, that's what we say. We say that people have enormous talent. They have enormous ability. They're not stupid. They actually can figure things out for themselves. But what they need is they need an effective structure to work inside of. And the effective structure that we're suggesting is multiples of triads co-joined together. It's what we call stable, effective partnering.
So I am a student. I recently graduated from a college or university. I am a young manager. I work in a company. I am a director working in a corporation, or I'm a CEO of a company. I understand that this thing called triads creates stable relationships. Can you tell me how can I use triads on a day-to-day model, whether I'm a student, a manager, or CEO of a corporation, to do the things that I'm interested in doing?
Okay, good. That's a great question. One of the things to understand, Timur, is that mastery, this is a question about mastery, okay? I don't know if you intended that it be a question about mastery, but it is, okay? And mastery is a function of practice. So when you practice, you start from where you are. Remember, I just said a moment ago, lead from your current position.
Yes.
You start from where you are. And what you do is you spend your energy, rather than taking care of your own survival needs, you just kind of chill and realize you're going to make it through. You're not going to die. You're going to be just fine. What your job is in this life is to find two other people. To find two other people who have similar interests to you and a similar commitment to you, and that what you do is you make sure that those two other people succeed. You also form the kind of relationship where each one of those two people is making sure that you and the other person is going to succeed. So if it's you and me and Ted, okay, my job is to make sure that the relationship between you and Ted is powerful, robust, resilient, effective, and partnering, that it's a peer relationship. Your job is to make sure that Ted and I have a powerful, resilient, robust relationship. And Ted's job, of course, in which he does brilliantly, is to make sure that John and Timur in our partnership have a really powerful, effective relationship. When everybody in the triad has their attention on the success of the other two in the triad is robust, it's resilient, it's stable, and it's ready to actually take on being the fractal, or the basic building block, for a number of other relationships that are just like that. So your job is always just to make sure that the other two around you are in a good position, that they are strong, that you bring them what they want. It's a form of servant leadership in a certain sense. It's also a form of transformational leadership in a certain sense. So no one actually has effectively combined transformational and servant leadership, but that's what it is. It's transformational servant leadership, where in fact you are committed to not the success of the other, but the success of the others. Okay? Wow. So it becomes a leadership conversation. Now, the interesting thing is, as you grow this idea, so you practice on your mom and your dad. Okay? Your
Uh-huh.
mom and dad have been together for years, and if your mom and dad are like my mom and dad, they kind of bicker and they kind of squabble and they kind of do their little thing. And what you do is you always nurture the love that's between them because that's what got them together in the first place.
Yeah.
Then you work with your mom and your brother. Now, you got a brother that's a handful, but he is a genius. He is a genius. He's a genius and a poet. And what you're doing is you're always working on the relationship between your father and your brother, making that to be successful. Now, as that goes on, you have your brother has a fiance. So if you're smart, you work on the relationship between your brother and the fiance, building that, nurturing that, because that's eventually going to come into the family. In the meantime, you have this beautiful wife. And you're always working on her relationship with her father, her relationship with her mother and father's relationship with each other, and her relationship with her twin sister. So you're building that, and then on top of that, you're working on the relationship between all of those, like her sister's relationship to her daughter and her relationship to her husband. You are always nurturing and building the in-between of relationships. I'm never, ever, ever really have to work on you, Timur. I just have to take a look at where is it broken down between you and someone else and work on the in-between.
Love it. I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. So,
go ahead.
So tying it back to my question, what I can now see is if I was a CEO of a corporation, I would be looking at creating events where I'm bringing my shareholders and kind of creating a triad between them and the customers of the corporation.
Yeah.
If I was a director of, I don't know, I'm making this up, director of sales in a company,
yeah.
I'm now looking at how do I take my counterpart, director of customer service, and connect them to the client or connect them to the CEO of the company, like building those relationships.
That's exactly right.
That I'm surrounded with.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There was actually a kind of a popular thing for about a minute about 10 years ago called management by walking around. You may have heard of it.
Yes.
Okay, you were in your cradle and people were changing your diapers, but there was this thing called management by walking around. Well, if you take a look, the reason that it didn't stick and it didn't have legs and continue was because they didn't understand that management by walking around is triading. That what I'm doing is I'm going to walk around, I'm going to talk to the people, I'm going to find out about their job and who they're working with, and I'm going to fluff up the relationship between them and the co-workers and between them and the company. And what we saw was results improve a lot. But results improve and then they die when that very smart manager goes away, or they write about it at Harvard and they say management by walking around, and somebody walks around, but they're walking around and what they're interested in is I, as manager, what are my results, rather than you, as co-workers, what are your results and your building of them. Most managers actually do not understand what their job is. They do not. If you ask 1,000 managers what their job, what they get paid for really, 1,000 managers will tell you that what they get paid for really is producing results, and it totally makes sense. That's not what they get paid for. What they get paid for is managing upsets. Because if you have upset people working for you, and they're all upset, and if you have upset people working for you, you don't get results.
You
get more upset. So what you get paid for first is you get paid for managing upsets and now produce the results. Most managers don't know this. So it's a good thing to know. If you were triading and you had mastery in the area of triading, you would know that what your job to do is to actually work on the quality of the relationship between the other people in your life. Not the people, but the quality of the relationship between. What we say is the power is in the in-between.
Very good, very good. John, I want to ask you another question, and building on what you just shared. Some of the challenges that we see today is just a number of messages that hit us every day through television, social media, billboards like that. And the brain is not really designed to capture so much information hitting us. And then once you take that individual and bombard them with a lot of information, and then kind of give them a job, give them a part-time school to go to, or give them a family to have, whatever else, very quickly there's so much for that human being to do that you could say one of the impacts is hard for people to be present in
Yes.
today's world.
Yes.
So I'm now part of a triad of 20
Yeah.
people. I watch this awesome Google Hangout. I got that there's a triad here that I have to create. I'm going to go and put together that triad. Well, one of my triad members or the other, the members of my triad may not be present.
Right.
And sometimes I just forget that they are part of a triad.
Yeah.
How do I go about maintaining a triad? So in the case of, let's say, you, me, and Ted as an example, I'm completely making this up, not true, but I'm completely making this up, is let's assume that Ted all of a sudden gets really busy. And he forgets that his job is to build the relationship or the quality of the relationship that you and I have together.
Right.
So now what do I do?
Well, there's a number of things, okay? And one of them is getting really clear about what it is that you're doing, and that what you're doing is not quantitative, but it's qualitative. So that's the first part, is that your actions are qualitative, not quantitative. No amount of doing, and you're describing to me the case of all of the world is coming at you over your desk, and your hair is on fire, and you've only got a certain amount of time, and a certain amount of energy that you can kind of do it. It's exactly the same complaint that, for example, teachers have. Oh, I've got 32 people in the class. I can't possibly do it because there's just too much. And it is. They give them a lot of stuff to do, like, well, take roll 3 times, So first of all, you want to get very clear that what you're in is you're in a qualitative conversation. You want to get that in life there is time and there is space. Okay, and that what we are is we are not the people who are concerned with time. Now that's a management distinction. People are concerned with time and how much I can get done. That's an efficiency conversation. But if you are actually committed to having something happen, you're committed not to efficiency but to effectiveness. Effectiveness is not something that happens inside of time. Effectiveness is a function of creating a space for something to emerge. Okay, so rather than driving an outcome like a manager, where we're becoming efficient and more efficient and more efficient until we finally blow up the machine, or blow up the human being that we're disrespecting and using as a machine, what we're doing is we're taking a look and we're saying, in the environment of the people that I'm working with, how can I make this environment more nurturing, more causative of invention, more something where people are talking with each other and they're making stuff up, just like you said, you just made something up. How can we do that? And one of them is we understand what we're doing. You are not a time bandit. Okay, that's not what you are, not in this conversation. Triads, you're a space cadet. You're actually building space for people to actually be successful in. So your job is to be that person who is creating the environment that is conducive to people's success. And, oh, by the way, when you do, people get present. Now, if I'm driving you in terms of time, I've probably got you concerned about the future, which is to say, I'm going to die, I'm doomed because I'm not going to meet the deadline. I'm not going to. Okay? So you're not here, you're not present. And that is the particular thing that I learned, by the way, in college. I go to college and I learn to be completely in a state of anxiety about the future. That's what I learned. Okay, and then you've got, and I'm sitting in a classroom with a bunch of people around me who are in the same state. So if that's your state of being, and that's the state of the being of everybody that's around you, it's also the state of the being who is the person who is managing you. And by the way, a teacher is a manager, not particularly a leader usually. And so what they're doing is they're driving quantitative results. That, by the way, after you've checked the requisite number of boxes, we're going to give you a piece of paper that says you're an engineer. You're not an engineer. You're a long way from an engineer, but you have a cognitive understanding and probably the vocabulary of an engineer. Okay, that's a different thing. On the other hand, what if the teacher actually understood that what they did is they needed to create an environment that was conducive to people's learning and created an environment where the students were having rich conversations about the subject at hand, and the teacher was now spending the time distinguishing out and fleshing out and maybe even bringing to some sort of explanation the nuances and the harder points of it, but the student themselves became responsible for their own growth and development. And in doing that, it's way different than showing up and justifying my existence because I had them do these 1,300 things between the day they showed up and the day they graduated. And we checked, of the 1,300 boxes, we checked 1,100 boxes, so this person gets, you know, a 2.7 grade average or a 3.2 grade average like that because they successfully got through all of that. How about if they actually understood it? How about if the students were learning it to the point where they could actually teach it effectively?
Wow.
That's a function of creating an environment. That is effectiveness. That is, and how it happens and how it gets stabilized is people learn to triad, and in their relationship, they have an experience of being connected in a way that the people around me have my back, rather than it's me against the world. That's a little bit different, but that's kind of where it's at.
If we look at corporations around the world, if we look at a lot of students who are graduating from colleges and universities, I'll use the word individuals. If you look at a lot of individuals, they're highly trained in the role of what you just said. It's me against the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's the best way to word it, but it'll be some version of, if I want to be successful, I have to do all the work required for it.
Well, it's that plus, but that's definitely in there. You know, it's called, basically, you know, if you take a look at the issue of people who are in that particular zone, the fundamental issue is trust. And so what you've just pointed to is, if I'm going to get it done, who do I trust? And I only trust myself.
Is there an exercise that you can recommend for people who are viewing this, to kind of a mental exercise, emotional exercise, any kind of exercise that somebody can practice every day that takes and shifts their mind, shifts their thinking, shifts their habit of being from the world is all about me, or I have to do everything myself because I only trust myself, to shifting that thinking to triading, to a team of 3, to a team of, if I walk into a room, how can I be reliable that instead of thinking from what's in it for me, what's in it for me, what's in it for me, to shift that thinking to what's in it for everybody in this room?
Well, I think you want to take a look at, is there an exercise? That's an interesting question because it leads right back to management. And it leads back to a whole conversation about overcoming. This is not about overcoming. This is about letting go of practices. So it's not like taking on more practices. It's about letting go of things that don't work. So let's take a look at some of the things that don't work. One of the things that doesn't work is playing any form of a zero-sum game. Now, most people don't know about game theory, but here's what a zero-sum game is. A zero-sum game is any kind of interaction, and it happens on the individual level. It also happens. It happens in sports every day. What it's saying is that there's always a loser and a winner. Okay, so you and I are playing ping pong. Okay, and the game of ping pong goes to the score of 21. The first person who gets to 21 points, in other words, they've defeated the other guy 21 times, like that, then the first person get there wins. So let's say we're playing a game of ping pong, and at the end of the first game of ping pong, you have 21 and I have 18. Okay, you beat me by 3 points. So you beat me by 3 points and I lost by 3 points. That's a zero sum if you take both sides of that equation. That's called a zero-sum game. You're actually completely trained and developed to play only zero-sum games. And your survival is something that you have taken on as completely a function of your winning zero-sum games. So, do you win every argument? I know people who do that. Are you a person who is my way or the highway? Are you a person that is trapped in that? In order for you to be trapped in that mode, you have to find people who are willing to play with you and are willing to lose over and over again. You know, it doesn't make any, without question, if you wanted to go play golf and you chose that you were going to go play golf, you had enough money and you chose that you were going to play golf with Tiger Woods, he's going to beat your brains in. He's going to kill you. But I'll tell you, the way that he is wired, if you play ping pong, he'll kill you. If you play dominoes, he'll kill you. If you're flipping coins, he will find a way to win. Okay? He will find a way to win because he is a winner and everybody else is a loser. His actual definition of second place, you'll love this, his actual definition, Tiger Woods' actual definition of coming in second is first loser. So here you're playing in the Masters and you come in second place, like this kid did this year, and he's the first loser. I don't think so. I think that was pretty amazing accomplishment. Now, that's the zero-sum game. That's the game that Michael Jordan played better than anybody in the game of basketball. That's the game that Tiger Woods played for several years better than anybody in the game of golf. It is a game that is called me against the world, and you have to be perfect every time. And if you fail big, and then you take on all of the drama of that. Oh, what does it mean when you fail big? You know, that sort of thing. Well, there's another game that's emerging because young people are actually sorting themselves into tribes. They're hanging out with people their age. They're finding smart people at their age that are up to things. And they are beginning to develop a philosophy or a point of view that I don't win unless my tribe wins. So they go into things together, and they go into it in what's called a non-zero positive outcome game. They create a way that not only how I win, my measure of how I win is other people winning. That's what a triad is. So how I win is that my triad wins. And how my triad wins is my attention is on that the other two in the triad win. That the other two in the triad are successful. And so now I have to put up with them, I have to be with them, I have to be in relationship with them. Big surprise. Because they're not a cog in a machine anymore. When you play the game as an individual, you are a replaceable cog in the machine. When Michael Jordan stopped playing basketball, somebody else was then the star. You know, and Michael was gone, and we remembered him. And the people who had seen him play remembered him long enough so that when he came back 2 years later, it was the second coming. But you know what? He's gone now, and the game's all about LeBron. You know, the game is all about some other people. Now they're doing an interesting thing down in Miami. They've got LeBron, they've got Dwayne Wade, who's the brains of this, and they've got Chris Bosh, and they have created a triad. And they said, we're going to do this. Why? Because all three of them want to collaborate to win championships, and they'd like to win a dynasty's worth of championships. It's never going to happen with one guy alone. It's only going to happen if people triad or they actually create a team of the 5 people there, and there's 5 different triangles. So it's very, very powerful. Where we have the problems in sports is when people become individuals and they become, quote, the star with their supporting cast. That won't work in business. That won't work in relationships. That won't work in your family. That won't work in society. And for sure, it's not the way that things are working in Southeast Asia, Central Eurasia, or the Middle East.
I love it. I love it.
It is a phenomenon. It is a phenomenon of Northern Europe. It is a phenomenon of what's going on, particularly in America. You know, America's been so successful with that cult of the individual idea. Well, very interesting that it's starting to slide for America now. And where Canada, who are people who tend to work together, and how you know it is, they're polite. They actually say please and thank you. They actually work together, you know. And, but in the so doing of that, they run the risk of being, kind of mowed over and rolled over by people who are, the star and supporting cast kind of person. But I see that in the Western world, in the developed countries, Canada is going to continue to rise. Now, you don't have the year-round access to all the things that the U.S. has access to, but on the other hand, neither does Japan. Japan is a profoundly collaborative, non-zero-sum game. If my company isn't making it, I'm not making it. I work for Toyota, I work for Mitsubishi, I work for Yamaha, and it's my job to make my little work group a better unit of the larger work group of a larger work group, and let's have the power of people working together. In so doing it, the Japanese have actually taken their economy from being in ruins 60 years ago to being a leader. Now, they've had some financial issues because they're tied to other issues, but if you take the culture as a whole, and you take the model of the culture as a whole, it's an extremely strong working business model, that of collaborating with other people so that we all succeed together. We're all in the same boat. Everybody grab an oar and let's start rowing.
I love it. I love it. John, rewinding 3 minutes ago from now, you made a comment about dynasties and, winning dynasty number of medals and so on.
Yeah.
And what I took away from that is when I, as a human being, and I'm using the word I specifically here, go from it's all about me or I to we or building a triad, what I learned out of that conversation was we actually end up building or creating bigger dreams.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And how awesome is that?
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole point, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you take a look and you ask, what is the purpose, in life? What is the purpose? Very few people know what the purpose is, but let's just take a look. Now, I'm going to cut to the chase on this because we could talk about what is the purpose, what is your purpose, what is the purpose in life. We could talk for hours, but I'm going to cut to the chase. The purpose is to survive. You don't survive, you don't get to play.
Right.
So the purpose is to survive, and then adding to that is to flourish. Like in the case of species, to survive and reproduce. Okay, flowers want that there be more flowers. Ants want there to be more ants. Tigers want there to be more tigers. Humans want there to be more humans. So the purpose, whatever the species is on this planet, including the planet itself, so it's becoming a big conversation, a big green conversation. The purpose is to survive. Okay? Now, once we understand survival, then the next piece is how can I survive? And then standing on that, like I've got everything in that'll actually ensure my survival. Now, how will I flourish? That means other people. That means other flowers, other ants, other tigers. That means we are in this thing together. So how do you flourish? You flourish in collaboration. Collaboration was something that humans made up 50,000 years ago, and specialization occurred out of that as well. We're going to go and we're going to take down this mastodon because it's going to get cold, and we're going to be hungry in a few months and have no food, so we better take it down now. Can you take it down by yourself? No. I actually need a lot of help. So let's get a lot of people over here to kind of help us take down this mastodon, and then once we've got it down, let's get a lot more people engaged in cutting it up and preserving it, and so that we've got food in the next 4 or 5 months. We learned how to collaborate very early on. And then we stopped doing it because we started giving prizes for individual accomplishment. So you become the MVP instead of the MVT, the most valuable team. And we're
Very
looking
cool.
to really reinstall the notion of MVT, or MVP for most valuable partnership. Okay?
Very cool.
The whole idea is, how can we support you getting to a place where you can leverage your talent, your genius, your ability, your energy, and your social skills? And the only way you can do it is with other people. So the way to do it, the access to do that, is form triads. So if you ask me, because I said this is about mastery, and you ask me, mastery is a function of practice. The practice, the thing that you do every day, is you put two other things, people, together, and you nurture that relationship.
I love it. I love
and
it.
you do it again. You can say that for the rest of your life, there is nothing to do but to form triads.
Wow, wow, that's so powerful. I love it. I have to tell you something. As you were sharing this with me, I was thinking about breakfast this morning, where I was having breakfast with a very senior executive or manager that you know of at GlaxoSmithKline.
Oh, yeah.
And this individual is in the process of leaving his current role to kind of create what's next for him in his life.
Uh-huh.
And as we were having breakfast together, he says to me, Tamor, how many times in life have you stopped to kind of think about what's the purpose of your life and where are you going? And I said to myself, well, I could think about it a few times I've done it. And he goes, you know what? I'm in my 50s. Do you know how many times I've done that? Like, what's the purpose of my life? Where am I going? I only have one question for you. I said, what? He said, how do you, whatever you create for yourself, when you kind of take a day off your life and kind of create what you want to do for the rest of your life, and you create a plan, you know, we keep going back to that plan, if you will. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we keep going back to it because we keep forgetting what the plan was.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And sometimes even life changes.
Mm-hmm,
so we keep on reviewing that day, and it goes, when you create an inspiring goal for yourself, how do you keep it alive? Like, how do you stop going back to, I have to go and figure out what the purpose of my life is? I didn't know the answer to that. When he was asking me this morning, I was like, well, I keep, you know, I don't do it every day, but there has been times where I inquire about what's next for me in my life, and I keep reviewing it. Now I could, now I have a context for triads. Now I can tell them, have you considered triading?
Yeah. Well, that really is it. You know, you think about the average marriage where the guy's caught up in a job and he's kind of got it together and so on like that, but if he did not have his wife as his partner, his children as his partner, you know, he'd probably want to quit and go on and start over with something else that looked a little more favorable for him. So what keeps him in are the people in his life and in his relationship who are supporting and nurturing that which is important to all of them, but particularly important to this person. So men go further, or women go further, because their partner is in the game with them, cheering them on, and nurturing their relationship to that which they're trying, because believe me, no matter what you do, you want to quit. I was a professional dancer. Being a professional dancer is a thankless job that is very hard, and it is way not worth it if it's about those 2 or 3 or 5 minutes that you're on stage. It's just not. You know, you get more out of being a dancer in terms of immediate visceral feedback if you never take a dollar for what it is that you're doing and you just dance for the joy of dancing. The joy of dancing went away when I started taking money for it. Okay? Had very, very few really fulfilling moments as a professional dancer. I did a lot of neat things, worked with a lot of neat people, but I had to find my joy in my relationship with the people, because it wasn't going to happen doing, you know, whatever the choreographer said. That was just something to do. That was my transport mechanism. What it's really about is it's about our relationships with one another. What's really was powerful was that I did a world-famous act doing a world-famous ballet with a world-famous dancer, and we were hugely in relationship during that time. And oh, by the way, when I left that act, it all disappeared, including the relationship. So your relationships with people are a function of your ability to build some sort of stable, effective, triadic relationship, and then add a few more things in to keep stabilizing it.
I love it.
You know, so it's pretty simple. And I'll tell you something, people fail at this because they start intellectualizing it and making it harder than it is. No, it's real simple. Children do this naturally. Okay? You think your dog, loves you? What anchors you in your relationship to your dog? I know that this is going to be a bad thing, and I'm going to get slammed for it. But what anchors you to your relationship to your dog or your cat is that you're feeding them. You are their access. You are their can opener. You're the one that can get the bag of kibble open. You're the one that cleans up after them. You're the one that feeds them. You're the one that opens the door. Their relationship to you is you work for them. And you work for them, and you nurture their relationship to their food and to their bathroom habits, and and they come, and then when they get tired, they come and they want to get in bed and sleep with you.
Wow, that's.
But you are being triaded by a dog. You are being triaded by a cat, and if a cat and a dog can do it, a human can do it. Babies do it. Babies are like, I am triaded with my mother. Do I love my mother? No, she's the source of food and warmth, and comfort.
Wow.
It takes a while to learn how to love.
John, we're hitting the top of the hour for our viewers.
Okay.
I just wanted to kind of just check in with you. Any last-minute thoughts, comments, assignments?
Well, this is
to think from to get viewers started on.
This is just a kind of a free-ranging conversation about the nature of triads, and as you said earlier, this is one that we made it up as we went along, which is probably the best way to do it. So it's a sloppy conversation because the process of triading is a sloppy process. Mm-hmm. It is in the realm of leadership, and it has to do with actually leveraging your power. And when you understand that power is not force, when you understand that power is actually living inside of an invitation for you to create a future together, and it is actually the fulfilling on the promise. What I say to you and what you say to me every day when we talk is that I promise you that we will forward the activities, the action, the power, and the influence of 1 million acts of innovation. So that's all we do.
That's
Other
true.
than that, I wouldn't say we know what we're doing. That's what we know how to do.
That's true. That's true. And then as we go along and as we move forward on this, there are lots of people who may have some further questions in terms of triads.
Yeah.
How to incorporate triads in the culture of the organization, like that. How do people who are viewing this get a hold of you, contact you in order to engage you if they want to leverage a lot of these distinctions that you've created?
Well, it's very easy. Just email me, and here's my email address.
Yes.
My email address is John King Partners, all one word. John King Partners, because I feel like everybody's my partner. I didn't get to that name until I started doing triads. So johnkingpartners@gmail.com.
Very cool. John, thank you so much for being so generous with your time, and I love everything you share.
Well, thank you.
And I also want to thank the viewers.
You love the part about the dogs and the cats? That's important.
Thank you so much, John.
Okay, my friend. You take care. Bye-bye.